turning it on and raising the canopy for admission, that's not ideal. It can be done. If the bed's not been on and a baby walks in and you weren't expecting him, then absolutely, just turn the bed on, raise it. It'll heat at 100% for almost 10 minutes, and then it will kick down. So it'll make the mattress nice and warm. But if I know that I'm gonna get an admission, before I get the admission, it's better to pre-warm the bed in incubator mode. So when the bed comes up, it offers the nurses of 33. A lot of nurses will just confirm it right there. And that's not really warm enough for any baby to be admitted into this bed unless they're a term baby, and that doesn't usually happen. So what they should do is, if I know what I'm getting, I can go into the comfort zone and tell. If I don't know what I'm getting, I should just assume I'm going to get the youngest baby I like. So go into the comfort zone, tell the bed what gestational age baby you're expecting, or less than 29 if you don't know. Day of life 1, and we don't know the weight before admission, and it doesn't matter. As long as the baby's 7 days old or less, it doesn't skew that. This is a good range of thermal neutral environment for a baby of this type. So I can adjust it if I want to, or I can just take what it offered, and now it floats up and it's gonna pre-warm the bed to that temperature. Okay. Now a couple reasons why you wanna pre-warm is everything in the bed's gonna get nice and warm. Although that temp probe, you shouldn't pre-warm those in the bed because it's gonna become that temperature. And then if I'm putting on a baby that's a little bit cooler than that, it's sending the wrong initial information to the bed, and it's harder, it takes longer for a temp probe to come down to baby skin temperature than it would to come up if it's been at room air. So we won't preheat that in there. But we'll preheat the bed so the inner walls get nice and warm, mattress, blankets, everything, bow tie heater in the bottom gets nice and warm. And then right before the baby comes in, that's when we're gonna raise the canopy. Yeah, we'll lose all that warm air, but everything's nice and warm for baby. We'll get our, put it in baby mode and radiant warmer. And the radiant warmer will put out what heat it needs while we're doing our lines and our labs. So I wanna talk to you about the algorithms that the bed have. I don't get a lot of time to spend with the nurses to tell them about the algorithms, but if they understand it a little bit, they might understand how the bed is responding to what they're doing. So in radiant warmer mode, the bed has two algorithms. One is called adaptive, and the other one is called proportional. So adaptive, if I have the canopy up and I have the skin tip set at 36.5 and my baby is within 0.5, then it's going to make very small changes. Every 30 seconds, it'll make very small changes. If my baby gets more than 0.5 degrees away, then it's going to go into proportional mode, where if the baby's more than 0.5 too cold, it's going to increase the heat all the way. And so that's when you'll see the radiant heater be sometimes 100% or 0, and that's because of the information that the temp probe is sending to it. So every 30 seconds, it's making those changes, unless the baby, like if I were to just take the probe off, the bed would immediately not even wait that 30 seconds, it would immediately think, oh, this baby's cold, and it will go to 100% heat. To avoid that, what I should do is jump into manual mode, move that temp probe from one side to another, and then put it back on, and then go back to baby mode. So that's how radiant warmer works. Let's go back to our admission. Let's say we got everything done, all our labs, and we lower the canopy. Now, for the nurses that set that air temperature at 33, the bed's going to remember that the last air temperature was 33, and during that first 10 minutes of assessing the baby to figure out what the air temperature should be set at, it's going to head towards 33, which is not warm enough. But if we picked from the comfort zone that range of thermal neutral environment, then the bed's going to head to that direction, which is more appropriate for the baby, while it's along, same time assessing the baby to see what they need. So, and there's some units that leave it in that air mode for the first hour when they lower the canopy. But I mean, most of them just put it in baby mode. So let's say now the canopy's down, we're in baby mode. So in baby mode, and those volumes can be defaulted to a lower volume if you want to. They're at 4, which is a little bit loud. But so we're in baby mode. Two algorithms when it's in an incubator mode with the canopy down is a 10-minute time frame now. So if the baby's within 0.5 of the set temperature, every 10 minutes it's deciding based on how far away the baby is, do I need to go up, go down, or stay the same? If I were to move my temp probe from one site to another and I didn't put it in air mode, I just took the probe off, the bed's going to immediately think that my baby's more than 0.5 too cold, and it's going to go into proportional mode and put out its as much heat as it can to get that baby's temperature back up.
Even if you're just taking it.
Even if you do it a split second, the second you take it out, because the temp probes are sending thousands of data points every second to the bed about what the baby's temperature is. And you might think you're moving it so fast, but the second you take it off, it increases the heat and it puts the bed in proportional mode. And for the next 10 minutes, it's going to want to put out maximal heat. To avoid that, if I'm going to move my temp probe from one site to another, then I want to go to air mode, and I can go to air mode either side. The first time I go to air mode, let's say the baby's been comfortable at this temperature. This is a little bit low, but we'll work with this. It's going to remember that my last set air temperature was 36.7. So the first time I do this, I might want to go ahead and just bring that back down to close to where the baby's comfortable. And the couple reasons why I want to do this is, one, the bed won't alarm at me while I'm doing my cares, telling me I have a hot environment or a cold environment, that my air temperature, my temp's set too high. The other reason is, hopefully the nurse is not forgetting to put it back in baby mode, but if she did, at least they brought this air temperature down to what the baby has been comfortable at. And then they're not going to overheat the baby that way. Most nurses do remember, because they're putting in air mode, they're moving the temp probe, they're getting it in place, and they're going immediately back to baby mode. So by doing that, when I'm in air mode, it's not taking into consideration what data it's getting from the temp probe. So when I just take it off, it's not thinking the baby's cold, and it will just do its air temperature. And I avoid having those temperature swings. So
I think right there itself we have a problem that we have identified. Like we switch our temp probe every time, and we're not putting it to air mode.
Yeah.
And majority of our errors have happened when we switch to air mode and we forget to put the baby back on, and the baby gets very cold.
Yeah. So there's a feature in here that if your nurses tend to forget to put it back to baby mode, we'll go to air mode. And if you, unfortunately I can't default the beds to this, but this is a feature I can turn on, and it will stay on until I turn this bed off and reset the defaults. It's called Skin Temp Alarm Air Manual Mode, and I've got either 0.5 degree Celsius or 1 degree Celsius. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick 1 degree Celsius. So if I have that feature turned on, if I go into air mode and my baby's temperature starts dropping, the bed's gonna let me know that baby's getting cold. So maybe I would want to use 0.5 degree Celsius. The bed's gonna let me know that the baby's getting cold because it remembers the last set skin temperature, and the bed will call me back. It's not gonna change the air temperature because I'm manually set at that one, but it will at least let me know. Now I noticed one of the girls in there, there's a mom doing kangaroo, and the nurse was gone from the room, but she had put it in air mode, and she had left the temp probe on the baby while mom's holding. And that's a really good idea of doing kangaroo care, because you can still see what the baby's temperature is. It's in air mode, so what's going on out here with the baby is not affecting the environment in there. And if she were to use that feature, Skin Temp Alarm Air Manual Mode, if the baby starts getting cold during that kangaroo care, the bed would let the nurse know, so she could come back and add a warm blanket or a hat, or decide maybe it's time for baby to go back into the bed. So if the nurses, think they're gonna forget or tend to forget, then just turn that feature on and it will stay. So anytime I go to air mode, the bed will let me know if my baby's veering away from that temperature. So, and I always tell the nurses, I know it's a couple of extra steps that you're not used to. You're used to just moving that probe from one site to another. But in the long range, it's gonna save you time, because if you just move it and your baby ends up hot, nurses, they start opening portholes, they start dropping the door, they try to fan in there. None of that does any good to cool the bed off, because it remembers the last set air temperature, and it's there. And you shut the door and the heater needs to dissipate because there's no AC in the bed. Another thing they do is, oh, my baby's hot, let me change the skin temperature, let me go to air mode, let me change this. Every time they touch this, they're resetting that algorithm, and they think the bed's not responding to the hot baby, and the bed's not, because the nurse keeps changing things, and the bed can't process that algorithm to say, this is a hot baby, I need to have my heater all the way off.
How many minutes will it take? Say, for example, if your baby is hot, we're gonna set the temperature at 36.6, and now I have a temp of 99.8. What if I decide I want to go down on my servo temp, my set temp to 36.3? And I've repositioned my temp probe to another site, and I've gone down on my temp, my servo temp to 36.3. How many minutes should I wait for the bed to?
So, and I want to circle around to what you said about lowering the skin temperature, but you should notice after, you might see that number, if the temp probe has been off, you might see that number creep up a couple of more, even after you get the temp probe on and the baby's hot, because that heater has to reach its peak, and then it starts coming back down. And again, there's no AC, there's nothing to cool the bed, so it just, so after 10 minutes, you will notice that that has started going down. After 20 minutes, you will notice a significant difference, that that air temperature has dropped. And by 30 minutes, you should see the bed about back to the same air temperature it was before. Now, it does depend on what kind of room it's in. The warmer the environment, the warmer, you know, the inside. Like, this bed will never be cooler than the environment it's in, because there's no AC in there. So, and if the nurse isn't sure how the bed's responding, you can go into the trends, and you can see, you know, what's the set temp, or you can see what's the air temp. You can see where we turn the bed on and the air temperature's steadily climbing up, because now I've got my baby a little bit cooler than my set temperature, so it's gonna keep increasing just a little bit. Now, what you said about the baby being hot, so let's say, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk in Celsius, okay, rather than Fahrenheit. So let's say we have our baby's skin temperature set at, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to 36.5. But now my baby's gotten hot by more than 0.5. So, for me to put that down to 36, I just put this bed in proportional control, so it's putting out maximum heat. For me to, I'm kind of maybe saying this backwards. For me to lower this by 0.3, it's not really doing any good, because the baby is already 0.5 away. It's already backing all the way off on the heat. I did say that first part backwards. I said the heat was coming up. If my baby's too hot by more than 0.5, that heater's gonna back all the way off. So if I drop the skin temperature from 36.5 to 36.2, I'm not really doing anything. The heater's already backed all the way off, so it can't back off anymore. So I don't necessarily have to change it. I'm not gonna hurt it to change it, but I'm not necessarily gonna help it. If the baby's been happy all week long at 36.5, then I shouldn't have to lower that.
So what is the recommendation then? If my baby is hot, what am I supposed to do?
If your baby is hot because the temp probe fell off, or I forgot to put it in air mode when I moved it, then the best thing to do is get that temp probe back on the baby with a good sticky reflective cover. Make sure it's got good adhesion, you know, good skin contact, and let the bed do its job. And it's gonna sense, oh, this baby's more than 0.5 degrees too hot. And it's gonna back all the way off on the heater. After 10 minutes, it's gonna reevaluate. Baby's still hot, it's gonna keep that heater off. After 30 minutes, if the baby's getting closer, then it still might it'll adjust itself in smaller increments the closer the baby gets back down to the set temp. If you have a baby that the skin temp is set at 36.5 and they have like heated humidified respiratory support, or phototherapy. The phototherapy lights shouldn't really put too much heat in there.
We don't use those lights though.
You don't?
No.
These are great lights.
I know, we don't use those lights. We have other phototherapy.
Is there a
lights.
reason why? That's another conversation.
Yeah, that's another, I don't know, we haven't used these lights in a long
These
time.
are-
I think it's because we don't have the readers for them, the
okay.
radiance meters that can
You do
measure
have the Neotech. You need to get you a
so I
giraffe
think
meter.
that's why,
Yeah.
we have the Neotech, and I think that's why we don't use the.
Right. So
lights.
these are great lights. They're high intensity phototherapy lights, and they're mounted on the bed. You don't have to take up that floor space and have something over the top.
Mhm.
You could just have that in place. So we need to see if we can get you using these, because these are excellent phototherapy lights. This
I've
is
heard the
mine.
light is good, but it's just like we don't
Yeah.
have the millimeter.
Okay. Yeah. You just. Do you have any of the old Omida meters?
No, they're all broken.
Okay. All right. We have to see about getting because back in the day when I was at the bedside, we just went and grabbed a meter. It didn't matter. But now they
I had
say
to take down notes because I was
you
gonna
should.
forget.
Now they say
I can
that
send
you
you the
should
video.
check it.
Okay. Okay.
So again, if the baby has gotten too hot,
Mhm.
then just make sure you have the temp probe on very well, and the bed's gonna realize, oh, this baby's more than 0.5 degrees too hot, and it will back off. And then again, you know, after 10 minutes, you'll notice, that the temperatures come down a little bit. After 20 minutes, you'll definitely notice. And I know this because this is my simulator, and when I'm alone with these beds, I can, you know, I can make a cold baby, and I see how the bed reacts, and I watch the air temperature go up, 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 and then once I get the air temperature really high, then I'll turn my simulator, so now I have a hot baby, and I'll watch the air temperature come down, 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 and I've timed it to see, you know, how long does it take for me to notice a difference that is coming down. And so after about 10 minutes, then I noticed it coming down. After 20 minutes, there was a significant difference. It had dropped by, you know, like 2 or 3. By 30 minutes passing, it was back down to the air temperature that it had started at, that it needed to be at.
Or do you have recommendations for where the skin temp, the probe has to be
Yeah.
at?
So many studies have been done on this, and the consensus is, from all the articles, there's no one spot that's the best spot. Either side, like I've gone to units and they say always on the liver, never on the liver, you know, always, you know, mid-axillary. It's whatever's working best for that baby. Babies are all individuals. Maybe I have lines, so I have to go a little bit more flank. Maybe I have gastroschisis, and maybe I have to, so either side of the abdomen, either side of the flank, mid-nipple, mid-axillary. So there's no one spot. I can tell you spots that it shouldn't be. Yeah, baby should not be laying on it. It shouldn't be on a limb.
Okay.
And then as far as you guys using the dandelions, if, let's say I have it here, and I have the baby in a dandelion, so it's in between the arm and the ribs, but it's still baby skin temperature. It might be a little bit warmer, but it's different than if the baby's laying on it. If the baby's laying on it, you know, it gets warmer down there because it doesn't move. If I have it under the baby's arm here, and not up in the axilla, but on this flat area here, you know, the baby, he might move his arm a little bit. Sometimes they're laying like this. So it doesn't really affect the reading of the skin temperature. It's still giving you a skin temperature.
Okay.
Especially if you have those probe covers that have the insulation. The ones that they're trying to get you that don't have the insulation, I can wave my hand at one of those and watch the skin temperature drop, because, or I can look at it and I can see that it's getting a little bubble and it's allowing that thermistor to lift up under there, or it's getting a little tunnel and it's allowing that thermistor to lift up under there. So that's why those are not good. My top performers that I have found and other clinical GE people have found is the ones I just gave you that I think Lena had a copy. Now that company does have 2 parts with foam. One has adhesive and one has hydrogel. I like the hydrogel better.
Yeah, we also like the hydrogel. Yeah. I don't like the adhesive because I feel like it doesn't last too long.
Exactly.
It just comes off very easily. We use them sometimes down in L&D, but it barely sticks on for the 20-30 minutes that we're down there in L&D, and by the time you come up here,
yeah, and you can't, if you try to move them, they don't want to stick again. So the hydrogel is better. The drawback of the hydrogel is if you have humidity, they do like to absorb that water and they get a little puffy, but GE has a bibliography, and there's a journal article, and I can get you a copy of it. It talks about skincare for the very small pregnant baby, and one of the techniques to keep that probe on is Mepitac. And it talks about, you know, cutting a keyhole in it, and there's many units that are doing that. And we haven't done any official studies on it, but many units are having success with that.
Like Mepitel?
Mepitac, yeah, Mepitel,
It's
Mepitac.
like
Now, there's
it's like a grade-like thing.
right. So there's Mepitel that's sticky on both sides,
Yeah.
and it's pretty sticky. There's the Mepitel 1 that's only sticky on one side. So I see a lot of people using that one. It's got kind of the mesh. And that's what that article talks about. And then I see some people using Mepitac, which is the same thing, but it doesn't have the little mesh.
Okay.
So that other hospitals have been very successful in using that as reinforcement. And it should always be probe, nothing in between baby skin and the probe. So probe, and then you know, the silicone tape, and then the reflective cover. And that article talks about cutting the keyhole out. So you know, you could, or there's many units that are not doing a keyhole. they're still having success with their thermoregulation and skincare.
So you say like anytime we make a change, either from going from a cold baby to get the baby to normothermic or from a hot baby to get a baby to normothermic, we have to wait anywhere between 10 minutes to see the initial change to 20 minutes.
On the average, when I did my test, that's how long it takes, because if the bed's, now you might see a baby warm up quicker because the bed's able to put out the heat. But, and then again, for the heat to dissipate, again, it depends. If this hallway was really, really warm, then it might take a little bit, longer for the heat. But, and the only delay is, because there's no AC in the bed. But really, to have, if the baby's too overheated, rather than have a sudden temperature change, which can, cause vasoconstriction and other problems, it is better for it to gradually come down. We do want it to come down, but we don't want it to come down too rapidly, or we don't want to go up too rapidly. But that would be the best thing, is to get this probe on, let the bed do its job. If baby's, really, really hot, and nurses, they just, last resort, raise the canopy, but put a blanket on the baby while you're raising the canopy, even though they're hot, because you don't want that cold gush of air on them. And then you can put them under the radiant heater, but I would gently, slowly move that back. Or if they're in a dandelion, instead of just throwing that dandelion off of them, I would just kind of, pull it back a little bit, so they, are getting used to it as you're pulling it back.
I think the things that we're seeing right now is the Dandel is a new product that we have started introduced to our unit like just a couple months ago. The thing we see with that, the babies get too hot. So when they get too hot, some nurses just take them off completely and then leave them to like cool off, and some nurses just take off the Dandel product itself and put them back in a Z-Flow. So there's like so much that's going on in between because they're not able to maintain the temperature. They say the babies are getting too hot.
I have a theory.
We've always learned that the probe the little heart has to be exposed.
That's a radiant warmer. That's more applies to a radiant heat.
Okay, so if it's in a warmer mode, it has to be exposed
to the heat.
And if it's isolate mode, it does not have to be exposed. It should not be under the armpit. It can be on the side or like on the flank, abdomen. That's fine.
Yeah. So, and then as far as exposed, really the reason why you want to make that you wouldn't want it exposed, I mean, you don't want the baby laying on it, but I can have a light blanket on the baby. The only drawback with that is I can't eyeball that probe every time I look at the baby to see if that heart is lifting up. So let me tell you a scenario that we just did in there. We went into there, the baby it's in baby mode. The skin temperature, I believe, was set at 36.5. The baby's skin temperature was reading 36.2, and the air temperature, it was a decent air temperature. But I was telling them how to put it in air mode to, move the probe. And I told her, I said, and really, since the baby's skin temperature is a little bit lower than the sun temperature, I suspect that probe is lifting up a little bit. So I asked the nurse, could you get in there and just make sure that probe is snugly on there, push on that heart. And she immediately, when she pushed on the heart, it went up by 0.1. And then she had it in air mode, so she kind of repositioned it a little bit and got it back on the baby. And then the baby was 36.6, so a little bit warmer than what the set temp. So if your babies are getting hot in your dandelions, it could be many things, but one thing it could be is because the dandelion is wrapped around the baby, the temp probe is down here where they can't see it, and something's tugging on it, the edge of the heart is lifting. Maybe it's getting older and it's losing its sticky, maybe there's been too much humidity. Just whenever they do their cares, or if their baby's temperature is, well that, and that would, are they reading too hot here, or is it that they're getting too hot when they're doing their secondary temperature checks?
When they're doing the temperature checks.
Okay, so, and it's probably, the skin temperature is probably not reading super hot here, or they would notice it. So I suspect that the temp probe is pulling away from baby's skin a little bit. The other thing is, what kind of temperature thermometers do you use to do your secondary temperatures?
So you have like a portable, I can show you one.
If you can get one real quick and show it. And then I want to tell you a little something about that thermometer.
Okay.